Okay. Hi, Josh. Thank you for taking the interview. And
Right.
I'm gonna, people can Google you and can see who you are, so we don't need to talk about that. And we chat a little bit in the start. So I'm gonna go straight to the question that's I've been thinking about for 20 years. So I don't know if you can answer this. So what is unique about Massimo Vignelli? We both work with Vignelli. So you are the president of the Vignelli Center for Design Studies. And I've been thinking because when I meet people, people are saying things about Massimo that I, having worked with him and spoke to him, I really don't see that. I see something much different than what everybody sees and talks about. So,
Hmm.
what do you think? What's unique? What makes Vignelli a Vignelli?
Well, first of all, I'm not the president of the Vignelli Center.
Ah,
You
sorry.
just sound like we're a country.
Okay, okay, sorry. I'm like,
It's okay. I'm the director, and
okay.
what we look like, although sometimes we feel a little bit like a country, is that we look like a building which is built to house the archives of Lela and Massimo Vignelli, and and within the building, those archives live as teaching tools for students here at Rochester Institute of Technology and for researchers and visitors from around the world to access that archive. Um, your question was what is unique about
Yes.
Massimo?
What makes him great? Why is he important?
Well, I mean, there are lots of ways to answer that question. I think I'll answer it from my perspective as director of the center, which is, a stewardship of his and his wife's life's work. Um, he was a planner and one who valued greatly the impact that true, clear, honest communication through the lens of design could offer. Um, and, his vision, as I knew him in the early days of the center, we've been here for about 10 years, was to not create a museum of his work. He was very clear about that in the conversations I had with him, that he wasn't interested really in enshrining the work or having it as a kind of acknowledgement of his greatness. He was sincerely interested in passing on a vision where the extension of modernist thought and clear communication, good design principles could be a benchmark for future generations. He was deeply concerned with the state of design today and with what looked to him like a future that could go in a number of different directions. And he felt, I think Massimo and Lella felt, that their experiences could guide future generations. And, many people love the Vignelli's work. Many people build their careers on the Vignelli's ideology, but they revere it from the standpoint of these individual projects and the impacts they made. The Vignelli's, in crafting this center, put all that aside in the hopes that the greater legacy behind that vision could inspire the next generation and future generations to do better, perhaps do better than they did. And it's not simple to build your career narrative into an education platform. It's not simple to build your archive into a major university. It's not simple to inspire educators and administrators to organize and implement structures that facilitate that kind of a dream. they worked tirelessly to make it happen here at this institution. And, I guess my, directorship, my professorship here, my stewardship of that vision is evidence of perhaps, in my view, the greatest, gift as a planner that Massimo and Lela could offer. I'm living proof that the legacy continues to inspire in a very practical way through our programming in the center. So anyway, you ask what makes them unique, and there are lots of things we could talk about from the standpoint of design, but I think, from my perspective, that the evidence here, in this building that I'm sitting in, and the platform that it has become and will be in perpetuity, is perhaps evidence of what made Massimo so unique.
I mean, I've been thinking about it a lot, because my reaction is, when I hear other people, discussing his work, is that I rarely agree. I don't know why. I just have this reaction. I think that's not it. That's not how I felt it. And you really kind of pinpoint on something that I agree is the word honesty. And because it's very hard to channel honesty. I think if you're a designer of products and communication, I mean, you're not a politician where you can just choose to be honest or not honest. You have to kind of work with something else, and you have specific goals in this design disciplines. But I really like that you said honesty. Kind of clicked in my mind really well. And how would you define, how do you see, what do you consider on, where is the honesty in design, or specifically in Vignelli design? How do you get that? How do you make more honesty in design?
Well, I knew Massimo and Lela in the last chapter of their lives, at a point where their many successes had coalesced in iconic contributions to the global landscape. So I had the benefit of really knowing them where in a period where their wisdom was most focused and available. I think that designers, good ones, tend to be lifetime learners, and tend to obsess over the details, materiality, technology, social constructs. They're always seeing in ways that others don't see. I remember actually the first time I met Massimo here at RIT. I had been in a kind of recruitment period with the administration here, and I visited a few times, and the center was still under construction. So they were completing it. And one of the reasons that I was interested in the post at RIT was because of the center. And the floor of the center is all tiled in a grid, as you might expect with Massimo. And I walked into the first floor Benetton gallery, Benetton. Yeah. And Massimo was on the floor, on all fours, on his knees and his hands, and he was scraping away at some of the grout in between the tiles, the grid. And so I walked up to him, and he looked up at me like this, and I said, "Mr. Vignelli, we've met in passing in Milan and New York in the past, but we never really had a conversation. My name is Josh Owen. I'm thinking about taking a position here at RIT. Anyway, it's my honor to meet you. I'm so excited about your center." And he looked up at me and he said, "And what is it that you do?" And I said, I'm an industrial designer. And the funny, thing about his answer was he was wearing his bifocals, like this. And so he sort of he looked me up and down for a minute. I could tell he was looking from from my eyeglasses to my shoes. And he said, "Yes, you are."
Okay.
And we had a good laugh after that. But it's a fun story and it's a charming memory. But I want to go back to that sort of wisdom and that sight that designers have. Um, he was sizing me up. He was looking at the choices that I made for my sneakers and my watch and whatever else. And he was seeing, I think, through the lens of a designer, whether those choices, measured up to his perspective on design. And that's not a comment about fashion or whatever. It's a comment about seeing the world clearly, the same way that he was obsessing over the grout in those tiles. If it wasn't perfect, then it wasn't doing its job, And I think that the wisdom that comes with age and experience and design is seeing clearly connections, disparities, the opportunities that materials and technologies bring to building new landscapes and new platforms. Massimo's honesty was in being able to see through the short-sighted perspectives that are driven by bottom line business decisions and seeing the real value of thinking in terms of program and plan and longevity. And so, you're asking how does this honesty, impart things, products, systems, graphics. When deployed properly, I feel that design makes our lives easier, better, more seamless, truer to our long-term visions. And I think that seeing through and seeing with all of those perspectives born out of years and years and years of working with materials and technologies and people and constituencies enables a designer, and in this case, a great one like Massimo and Lella, to give form to ideas which are meaningful and refined and restrained, and ultimately serve us well and serve us over time.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers your question, but that's a kind of
Well,
meditation on it.
you're giving answers that I need to think about. Like they're giving me they're keywords that are giving me positive feeling. As I told you, I spoke to many people and I saw a lot of media, and I just gives me a negative feeling. What you're saying is giving me positive, meaning I'm kind of connecting to that. But to verbally answer, I mean, you're very eloquent, so I need to analyze that more. But what's the ideas, the visuals that I have in my mind when you're talking is that honesty. I kind of see honesty as kind of going through the true towards the true purpose of something. He understood the true purpose of something, a functional purpose, and he was even when he was doing emotional things, he understood and cut right through it, and he was not wasting time or space or anything. He understood what people wanted. And I think many don't like that he wanted things to be more efficient. Well, people do like efficiency. We don't want to waste time. I think he was in many ways.
Can I interject for a second, because
Yeah.
it's something that you made me think about.
Yeah.
Massimo is often credited as the vision from his operation, of which there were many contributors over the years. But the point I want to make is not so much about the contributors; it's about Lella. So much of the output that is attributed to the Vignelli ethos is an inseparable relationship between Massimo and Lella. And in my short time here representing the Vignelli ethos. I've witnessed how people tend to move to the conversation around Massimo, but it's been clear to me in the period that I knew them, and in the research that I've done, and that what I know through the work in the center, that their vision was truly inseparable. While certainly Massimo tended to work, a bit more on the graphic design, and Lella focused on interiors and products to some degree, and then there was no rigid separation, so they often were sharing ideas and projects. The combination of their unique perspectives and insights and passions are what make the Vignelli output what it is. I mean, there's probably no singular, Vignelli output that didn't have the influence of both of their perspectives. So I just want to put that out there, because I do think that perhaps too many people don't give credence to Lella's powerful contribution. They joked, about the sort of husband-wife dynamic. She was the business end, the practical end, and he was the dreamer. I mean, they said that of themselves quite a lot, but and there was truth to that, I think, to some degree. But it was also the sort of theater that we often produce as couples in the world, right?
Yeah.
Especially couples that have been together a long time and working together a long time. That said, I think that more needs to be said about that relationship and about that powerful dynamism that came from Lella. I mean, one of many of her attributes was a incredibly insightful business perspective. And some of their products, if you use the marketplace as a measure of success, were quite successful. Like some of the seating that she did for Poltrona Frau. I mean, very, very smart furniture design. Not necessarily the most flamboyant, but smart. And if you use the marketplace as a measure, extraordinarily successful. So anyway, I don't mean to go down that rabbit hole, but I just think when we talk about Massimo, we're often talking about Massimo and Lella.
Yeah. Well, I think I only my contact with Allah was only on the phone, because
Yeah.
Massimo was he came, he visited, and then we spent some time physically, and I was evaluated like you on fashion, and he was very, very, very it was a little bit difficult. It was a bit provocative, the evaluation, and keep in mind, I met people, some people in Italy that were evaluated, let's call that an evaluation, and they didn't pass, and they were a bit grumpy after that, and their kids are also grumpy, maybe they're watching this video, so they have grumpiness going generationally for not passing that, like up and down, how you look like, and the immediate evaluation, can you do the job or not, are you going to have that special X to do the job. And but yeah, in my mind, sorry, I'm always thinking about physically the person of Massimo, so
Yeah. Yeah. No, I understand.
that's my. But you're right, because I never met physically Lela, and didn't work with her. So your relationship is different. I only work on the Benetton project. It was
Yeah.
about 6 months, and he was always supportive over email after. I don't know, we didn't chat much, but it was a bit. So it was very nice for me to meet someone like that, and then like Massimo, and I could email him like 10 years later, hey, what's up, and he would answer like tomorrow. That was a
Yeah.
bit strange, he would remember and everything. But Lella for me was only, hi, is Massimo there? It's like, hey, Massimo, here is Nicola again, bothering over something like that we need to do. So, but I never met him, met her. But yeah, I mean, in context of Vignelli, my perception of the Vignelli brand is that it's a team. Like I think Dali and Gala I always see Dali and Gala as together. Although there is also this very boring story, like one was a business and one was, it's not like that. I mean, I work with my girlfriend, and for sure I make some calls, she makes some calls, and maybe she sees her role maybe as maybe lower than it is. I don't know. Maybe that's sometimes she feels like that, but believe me,
People have the need to simplify
yeah,
these
yeah,
stories,
yeah, yeah,
and this is what
yeah,
we're victim to on a
yeah.
day-to-day basis.
Yeah, my business is a partnership of four, basically, and I can tell you, one person leaves is done. It doesn't exist, you know. So that's there is no doubt. Anybody who is work doing things that are bigger than themselves know this, you know. So anyway, I want to ask you. So now that you are the director, so I almost said president again, the director of Vignelli Center for Design Studies. So how do you see the what are you going to do? What do we plan for the next 5, 10, 50 years? How do you see that?
Well,
Sorry, all the easy questions, without any preparation. It's like
yeah, I mean, I always enjoy talking with interesting people.
yeah,
Um, it's quite new for me at this moment. I've been in the position now since the end of August, and because of the global pandemic and because of the immense important social changes in the United States, um, it's been a challenging time in general and specifically in the university and in this job. That said, I had the great fortune of inheriting this job from a colleague, Roger Remington, who built the center together with Massimo and Lella and many others. And he's been a mentor to me over the last decade, so the 10 years that I've been here at the Rochester Institute of Technology. And I've been fortunate to witness how he saw the center come to life and begin its evolution, and to participate, not as a director, but as a contributor over these last 10 years. So I've been fortunate to have a great deal of respect and understanding for the platform as it stood. And one can't help but think about what a different vision could bring as a collaborator, as I was over these years. So while I never imagined that I would end up being a director, my colleague did decide to retire after 57 years. Very impressive period. I was somehow in my head, I imagined him continuing to be the director until he was 120 years old. But he did decide to retire, and I was nominated and decided to accept this post. And I looked at the future of the center as an opportunity to build upon a powerful foundation. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, we sit in this, beautiful cube of a building that Massimo and Lella designed, and in its heart is an archive of many, many, many projects and all of the artifacts of process associated with those product systems, ideas, many lifetimes worth of learning that sit here. The two sort of words that came to me as I was meditating over the future of the center, and words that I've used as sort of guiding principles in these early days, have been diversification and amplification. The center is a global resource. And while you know about it, and I know about it, and lots of key stakeholders in the design world know about it, there are plenty who do not. Um, and I see many ways in which we can amplify the vision of the Vignellis and the presence of the center and its efficacy as a platform for research and programming. On the diversification side, we represent a particular point of view, the Vignelli's point of view, which stems from a modernist ideology, but certainly is not as rigid as some people might think. And the evidence of that is here. I think that that diversifying our impact is something that we can do through our outreach and our programming and our targeting of different markets and constituencies, people. We have a lot of platforms that we use for projecting and importing content that's kind of building off of the Vignelli attraction. So, I've been using our lecture series, which is quite popular, the Vignelli Design Conversations lecture series, as a way to attract diverse and underrepresented voices as a sort of first act towards my vision for the center. And so far, we've seen some really remarkable conversations, and maybe when you post this, you could put some links or whatever. But we've seen some remarkable people coming through. And in fact, right now I'm prepping for the third lecture in our fall series, who's a wonderful architect, Milton Curry, who happens to run he's the dean of the architecture department at USC in California. And I've known him for many, many years. And he's so dynamic as both an architect and a visionary educator and administrator. And he's responsible for pulling in the archive of the famous Black American architect, Paul Williams, which he has organized between USC and the Vignelli Center. And so he's going to be wrapping our lecture series up in a few weeks by talking about the extension of modernism in architecture into Black aesthetics, which I think is it's a conversation which picks up on so many streams of conversations here, in our moment, and both in the center in terms of archives and modernism, and also for culture at large, and the conversations that we need to be having. So that those blankets of amplification and diversification are broad ones. There are many things that I plan to do to extend our impact. And all of that, I think, is building, I would say, tactfully on the existing foundations that were so firmly and thoughtfully put in place. So really, it's a time of expansion and a time of partnerships with industry and other opportunities that can grow the center and support the archives. We have just a remarkable archivist here who's been thoughtfully working through the incredible cache of items that we have here. And there are many things that we hope to do to support her work here in the center.
But you just reminded me now that I think in 2010, I was working on an AI project for sports. And as a hobby, as a side thing with my partner, he was an AI designer. I actually convinced him that we design an AI that automates Massimo. I don't remember. I think I decided at the end not to email, and I don't remember if I emailed Massimo or before or after when I was thinking to do that. But we actually wrote a proposal with an idea that we create software that can, you know, I think design things the way Massimo wanted, like super simple, direct, as you say, honest. I mean, again, it's not about visual simplicity. And something that, another thing that's very important for me about Vignelli's work is that I work with him on a digital project. So we worked on a huge project, which even today would be considered a very complex technology, e-commerce for Benetton and a bunch of other Benetton. So like really big digital project, corporate, like global. And he's mostly known for print and objects and other things, you
Right.
know, and I think that's because he was limited by, he was dealing with technologies at the moment, you know. That's why I ask you, what is his meta philosophy? Because I was kind of on that edge where he was starting to do digital, and I worked with him as a young art design digital kid, and he was that experienced designer, so it was an interesting mix. But he was handling that very well, you know. He understood technology, I mean, obviously, you know. And so I was just wondering, you know, if he was detached from visual design and his philosophy was placed into technology, I mean, how he would do, you know, how he would influence, I don't know, Spotify or something today, or YouTube or Google, you know. That would be, you know, I would like to see that in the future. But anyway, I mean, yeah. Also with my students, I ask them every year, do they know Vignelli, and do they know Paul Rand? And this is the first year, I think, 3 new out of 14. I teach only 14 master class. I think 3 new Massimo and only 1 new Rand, you know, Paul Rand, which is a bit. Both facts are extremely depressing, you know, to me.
You know, it's interesting that you mentioned sort of, or you asked the sort of hypothetical question, you know, what would he do with future-based technology? I mean, you have some experience personally with that and with him. Just the other day, you might have seen the new subway map that the Manhattan Transit Authority put together. And that immediately, you know, came on my radar. Our good friend Gary Hustwit produced a short video explaining the project. Gary was just up here before the pandemic giving a talk. And, you know, I think the video sort of very eloquently suggests that the new interactive subway map is built upon the framework of the Vignelli map. And what was lacking in the Vignelli subway map by losing the sort of geographic references is regained in this iteration because of technology, because of the interactive component and the ability to scale. And I personally think that he would have embraced this, that he would have seen that this approach is a sort of yes is more kind of approach, as Bjarke Ingels would say. And I often sort of daydream about designers who are no longer with us, but whose objects have been under the care of, you know, manufacturers who are powerful design thinking organizations. Take, for example, the Eames fiberglass shell chairs. When they were designed, they represented the bleeding edge of technology. Now, fiberglass chairs with, you know, glued on rubber bumpers under them are not state-of-the-art technology today. Vitra, who I consider to be one of the, you know, the highest sort of platforms for visionary design-oriented furniture, who has the rights to those chairs outside of the Herman Miller relationship, made a logical assumption in redesigning those rubber bumpers and making those shells out of a more ecological material and refining those details, which I think some purists would feel is inappropriate. You know, save it, keep it the way it was, respect the legacy. Whereas I think that Charles and Ray would have said, that's great. You can make it more ecological. You can reduce the parts count. You can make it more, you know, simple, more elegant, more beautiful. Of course. Now, that's just my opinion as a designer. But I do think that, you know, designers, I don't want to say they have the gift of vision. They earn the gift of vision by developing the gift of vision. And again, as I said earlier, that vision is one that sees the world through the lens of all the streams of information and materiality and technology and cultural noise, and focuses it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I haven't seen the map. I saw it that they're promoting it on social, and I didn't get a chance to actually check it out. I saw that it's going on in the last few days, but my experience is that Vignelli, I mean, designers like that, like for example, Vignelli would not just like improve it. He would go like 100 levels above. Because when he worked on the digital project, you know, keep in mind, I didn't know who Massimo Vignelli was. You know, I had someone called me. You know, they said you have to come, and this is very important for you because I was on that project alone, and I didn't know him. They told me he's a big deal, and I was like, okay, you know, I'm gonna search a little bit. I saw the Vignelli website. Didn't really understand. Didn't know the history. I was a digital artist and a digital person. One of those, like a 20-year-old kid working in an agency and doing weird stuff. And and then I met him, and then I had a lot of skepticism, you know, because so far I never met an older person that was better than me. I was very young, 21, 22, and everybody was worse than me. Only people my age or younger were better than me. And he gained my respect. Like, keep in mind, I was unbelievably arrogant. So he gained my respect, I think, very quickly by being dominant in conceptual realm, because also in digital design we deal with data, we deal with concepts that are not visual. So he was grasping super quick. So I think he enjoyed the digital aspect a lot. I know he was doing later working on some very specific digital objects and stuff, so I think he never made them, but they never happened in Benetton. But I think people like that. That's why I ask always, what is the meta? Because I think as he has access to more and more technology, I mean, I cannot imagine Massimo working with like 20 top developers, you know, and then and also developers being able, software developers being able to understand, I mean, his language, because that's also a barrier between, you know, this kind of software development and stuff, what he would make, you know, like I think he was always pushing the limit, you know, like with American Airlines, where they said, okay, you have to put the damn eagle there, and he was like, okay, instead of just having AA, and then pushing the limit with what is available. But now the limits are, I think he would just push that limit way beyond, you know. And you know, it was more of an innovator, you know, just that was limited by technologies at the moment, you know. And
I honestly think that that great designers like Massimo and Lella see all these tools as just that,
yeah,
tool. They see them equally, and they see them, you know, fitting different purposes and creating new opportunities. I don't think that somebody like Massimo would have frowned at a new technology or a new.
no, he loved it, yeah.
I think he would embrace it,
Yeah.
you know, readily, and see it as an equivalent but different way of enabling problem solving to happen. Um,
Josh, I wanna ask you. I actually wanted to dedicate half of time to your work because first of all, I love the no smoking ashtray. You know, I mean, that's really that's it's so funny. I mean, it's I was just checking it out. I think I saw it before, but I was just checking it out. It's really, I'm sorry that it cannot be bought. I hate smoking, but I would buy that ashtray. I mean, you're the only person who made an ashtray for non-smokers. You know, that's like pure genius. You know, as like I never saw that. That's an art piece. That's a conceptual art piece. That's not. I mean, I love that humor. That's really very funny. You know, and I hope people check your portfolio and they find the ashtray. I mean, it's really genius. But I wanted to ask you, just besides Vignelli, how do you see, you know, because my interest is how design and innovation are going to change. You know, that's what I talk about a lot, and I'm interested in that. You know, how do you see design changing in the next 20 years? You know, do you think it's going to be more agile, more open, more inclusive? You know, in which direction it's going? Is it going away from the big names? You know, as before there was this like big names. Now there is more people everywhere, more people collaborating, or maybe opposite or whatever.
I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that design will become more inclusive. It has to. You know, as we were talking offline, I think at the beginning of our time today, I think the world needs to become more open, and people need to communicate more. People need to understand each other better across cultures and across all the barriers that we put up as artifice. Um, you know, the world is becoming open source also, right? We're already kind of like that. And so I think that design will shift greatly into a paradigm where there are many more contributors. Um, Technology is enabling this, as we see right now, doing this interview across the ocean. Seamlessly, by the way, right? I mean, it's quite remarkable that we're able to do this if we take a step back for a minute and think about it. So I do think that design will embrace the openness and the changes in ways that we can't fully appreciate at this moment. But at the same time, you know, history shows that things go in cycles. And part of the reason that, you know, I do the job that I do here is to be sure that we're stewards of history and that we can demonstrate through the collections that we have here that innovation and thoughtful, honest design can happen, you know, regardless of the technological innovations. We see, I mean, there are thousands of stories just over here in the archives that on a daily basis inspire our students to do better.
Just one thing, sorry. Oh, I have this, my little archive. So I think I had 50, 60 of these. I think I sent. So I kept 3 for myself. I always keep them here.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I do think that while, you know, design will change and embrace a new paradigm, we'll always fold back on the lessons that history can offer. And that's what we do here. We ensure that we don't forget about those decisions, those the evidence that the Vignellis left for us to teach fundamental lessons of good choices.
Yeah. And so let's say that, I mean, Vignelli was worried about more, as tools are more available, more people can produce design, and that not all of this design is going to be good. And I'm not really sure. I think he was just explaining it. I don't see him as a negative person being against more design. I just see him as describing it as it is, that there needs to be a classification of what's the best, what's good, what's not so good, etc. You know.
Right. We can't forget these lessons. I mean, this is the thing that I mean, the reason that Helvetica was such a powerful film, right? That Gary Hustwit put out some years ago. You know, this happened at a moment when desktop publishing was, you know, enabled. Technological change enabled everyone to be a graphic designer, and what that did was it amplified our lack of expertise, and that amplified, you know, the sort of visual pollution in the world, and most people don't fully appreciate that. You know, if signage is terrible, we get lost, and if we get lost, we lose time, and if we lose time, we can't do our work and live our lives fully. You know, it's a kind of you know, pulling out the string on a sweater, right? And technology enabled this, and so this is this kind of, you know, going back in patterns historically. We have to enforce, you know, these professions that we so carefully cultivate, and that point of view, which enables us to make, you know, better choices. It's great to democratize technology, but we also have to democratize the knowledge, use it properly.
Yeah. And just, I mean, that's a good point. Do you think that everybody can be a good designer? That every person could be, you know,
With the right training. Yeah.
and you think, but you think like in the far future that's possible? So yeah, I like to ask these childish questions because I find they're most fun and most interesting. You know, like, is it possible? Like, if we had the resources to make everybody a good designer, of course, there is an absolute value of what a good designer is. You know, that they just lack education. You know, they
I
just
think
like some tips.
education is the key to so many of our problems. Figuring out ways to educate people about everything.
So,
No, I think that I don't know. You know, I'm a guitar player, and I used to when I was young, I played in rock and roll bands and all these things, and
I don't know why. Now I see you completely different. It's like, as you said,
well,
guitar player, and you did this with your hand. I'm like, you're changed. No, no, something else. Yeah.
I put the guitar away for many, many years, and recently I picked it up again. And it's so interesting because I remember when I was a teenager, I would sit with headphones on next to a record player. I never took a lesson, but I listened to records, and I would sit for hours and hours and hours listening, and I would visualize what I was hearing, and I taught myself how to play by doing that. There were, you know, unless you had lessons, you had no real way to learn other than these techniques that you invent or whatever. And since I've come back to it in the last year or so, I noticed that now, you know, there's no need to listen. You can go, you know, to YouTube and witness millions of tutorials and, you know, people who are kind of hacking things. And so the ability to sort of learn through this new medium is staggering. And I felt a little bit like, you know, I had gone to sleep for 20 years and woken up again, and everything was different in this area that I had not paid attention to. And so, you know, there's some hope in that, right? That's a kind of, you know, tool that's provided amazing opportunities for people to learn with. If design were that popular as the electric guitar, then perhaps we could use this medium in some way to further education. You know, look at Sesame Street. Its biggest venue is YouTube because it can access points across the globe and across, you know, disparities and so on. There are certainly ways that we can use these platforms to educate.
I'm seeing Sesame Street teaching Vignelli design.
Well, actually, they did. They did. We just had a partnership with them.
That's gonna be funny.
I could share some information on that. We have many programming platforms that we do through the center, and 2 years ago we had a project with Sesame Street.
Okay, very cool. I'll search for it. Can I see it online? Is it somewhere?
I'll send you a link. Sure.
Send me so I can share it. Yeah, cool. Okay, so we are ending the time. So I always end with, do you have any questions for me?
I think I interjected a few times when I had thoughts. I guess I don't really have any questions. I wish you well, and I very much
Okay.
appreciated the conversation. And I hope to see you here in the Vignelli Center when it's safe to travel again.
Cool. Okay. Well, thank you very much. It was great talking. See you.
Likewise.
See you soon. Talk to you soon. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao.